Friends, great to see you on this Friday. We are live. It is CFLW, the show. Rusty back with you here. Hope you're having a great end of the week. We got a lot to talk about in the show. We've got some excessive heat that is building in at the hour. We'll kind of talk about what happened with Invest 93L and how even that leftover circulation could still play a factor in our weather by mid next week, and the opportunity for maybe the potential for more tropical development here a little bit closer to home as well. As we get started, CFLW, the show, is sponsored by the leading law firm of Central Florida, your hometown homeowners insurance attorneys. Friends, they cover the entire state of Florida. It doesn't matter where you live in the state. They can walk you through every step of the insurance claim process. They offer free consultation and policy reviews, so if you get any kind of damage to your home or if you've ever been in an auto accident, leanonmelaw.com is the website to go to. Great to see you guys. Hi, Kevin. Good afternoon from Lakeland. Hi, Fiona. How you doing today as well? All right, so we're going to kind of break down, of course, during the show here. We talk about what's happening now, and then I get into the forecast and get you guys prepared for what I expect, and of course, highlighting any opportunity for impactful weather across the state. The first thing I'm going to do here is just pause this loop and talk about the temperatures that are already in play. It doesn't matter where you are in the state. It is already breathtakingly hot and humid outside. These are actual air temperatures here at 1 o'clock. And outside of Daytona Beach and maybe on over towards Merritt Island and Indian Harbor Beach, you can't find a spot that's not already above 90 degrees. Here in the Orlando area, it's 91 at MCO, 90 Kissimmee, Sanford in at 91, Leesburg in at 90. We have 90 in Lakeland. We have 93 in the Plant City area. The Tampa Bay, St. Pete area looks like this. 90s, 90s, 90s. St. Pete itself in at 88. Congratulations, you're a little bit cooler. Even out towards Bayshore Gardens between Bradenton and Sarasota, they're in at 90. Up the I-75 corridor, we have 90 in the Spring Hill area, 90 in Inverness at the hour as well. Leesburg, Ocala, 90. DeLand, 93. Even Ormond Beach has hit 91. When it's 1 o'clock, right along the immediate coast, and you're at above 90 degrees, you know you're in store for a stifling day. And also, there's a fair amount of cloud coverage outside right now, even a little bit of haze. Now, that's not Saharan dust haze. You know, we can still get haze locally. You get inversions of the atmosphere, which kind of trap in some of the low-level moisture. But, you know, even here, look at what's going on right now in the Port St. John, Indian River City area. That's an air temperature of 95 degrees, and it's only going to get hotter. When you factor in dew points, which are in the mid and upper 70s, and even a couple of lower 80s. Anything above 70 is considered to be humid air. So this is stiflingly humid air. These are your feels like temperatures right now, okay? You have not only triple digit heat, but you have some spots that are at or above 110 right now. It feels like it's 111 in Ormond Beach, 111 in New Smyrna. Again, even in Daytona Beach, it's 102. DeLand in at 103. It feels like it's 103 in Orlando and Sanford, 103 in Titusville, 110 in Port St. John. Goodness gracious. I mean, this is rough. 105 in Inverness. Even here, you know, Hillsborough, Pinellas counties, St. Pete, 102 up to Largo and Clearwater, 108. The downtown Tampa area and just north there, 105, you know, 103 near the Brandon area. It's Seffner, 105. It's rough. It doesn't, again, matter where you are in Central Florida. It is blazingly hot. Fiona says she wants some rain. I don't have a lot in the forecast over the weekend, which means these kinds of feels like temperatures are going to be with us at least through Sunday. And probably not getting much better until we get a better chance for rain, potentially starting as early on Monday. Amy, how you doing? Great to see you guys. First of all, thanks for joining me for the show. If you have a quick second, hit that like button for me as well. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And again, getting you prepared for the weekend. This is what CFLW, the show, does on Fridays. We're going to talk more about potential tropical interests as well. I've got you covered. I want to bring up these National Weather Service advisories right now because these are all heat advisories. And let me be crystal clear. You have to get to a very high threshold for the National Weather Service offices to issue heat advisories in Florida. You know, they're not going to do it for feels like temperatures that are, 97, 98 degrees. You've got to go way above 100 because they don't want to be issuing heat advisories each and every afternoon in the summer. So let's look at the heat advisory, which goes into effect It's already in effect. It will end today, but do not be shocked if these heat advisories are in effect for most, if not all, of Central Florida over the weekend as well. So again, the Melbourne Weather Service office has heat advisories, heat indexes expected to be up to 108. We know we've already blown through that in a couple of spots. We already have 110, 111 in a couple of areas, so they might want to up that number for tomorrow and Sunday as well. And again, just the bottom line is that if you're going to be outside, you got to drink plenty of water. You got to find the shade. If you are the elderly or the young, you want to make sure you avoid the the outdoors during the mid-afternoon hours. And really, until maybe 6 o'clock tonight, you don't even want to be thinking about getting outdoors if you can possibly avoid it. Outside workers just have to hydrate. But if you can avoid the sun in the midday hours for the next couple of days, it's a good idea. At this point in time, the western areas aren't included in this, but Flagler and Volusia and Lake and Seminole and Orange and Brevard and Indian River County and Osceola County are. And again, it's not going to surprise me for Marion County and our western areas to fall under a heat advisory as we go through the weekend. It's not going to get any better. Hi, Therese. How you doing? Good to see you. Can see me in the house. What's the feels like in Palm Coast? Fantastic. I can absolutely show you that. Let's see here. I think the easiest way to do it is just to bring up this. Now, let's be clear, Palm Coast may not be reporting, and it doesn't look like it is. So to answer your question, Alexa, there are what we call METAR stations across the state. And if your station isn't reporting the hourly observations, I'm not going to pick it up on my system. So unfortunately, it looks like the airport there in Palm Coast is not reporting. The same situation actually for downtown Orlando. Look, these METAR sites go down from time to time for various reasons. The METAR site at the Executive Airport in Orlando is also down as well. So unfortunately, I don't have a number for you, Alexa, but I mean, if we look at St. Augustine at 105 and Ormond Beach at 111, you're probably somewhere in between, right? Probably at least 105 and maybe even up to 110. Great question. Unfortunately, that site's just down right now. Hopefully it won't be down for long, but I can tell you this. Over the past 10 years, that Palm Coast site is a spot that goes down more frequently than most. Not exactly sure why, but it just is the case. All right. You got it, Alexa. My pleasure. Look, again, it's somewhat semantics. When the feels like temperature gets to be 105 or higher, there's not much difference to the body between 105 and 110 and even 112. It's all dangerous, right? You really have to be very cautious in the afternoon hours here. So let's kind of talk about how this is going to play out, not only with the heat, but what's going to be happening over the weekend. I'm going to bring on the infrared satellite imagery, got the live lightning data and the rainfall here. Is there an opportunity for a cooling shower today? There is, but it's really stable, fairly dry air in place. We are going to be under our normal rain chances this time in the summer, at least through Sunday, trying to get it back to near normal values on Monday, and then getting back into a better than normal chance for storms on Tuesday. But you got to hold on over the weekend before that. Now, let's talk about what's been happening with Invest 93L. It never developed. The last time I saw you guys, that center was moving farther north. Basically, all it did was track the I-10 corridor, but the low-level center never got back offshore. The system never consolidated around the mid-level center, which was offshore, but you can clearly see that there is still a spin left right now in East Texas. This is the remnant, if you will, of 93L. Now, it's going to have potentially a very interesting journey over the next 5 to 7 days, and I'll highlight that coming up. But we may not be done here in Florida with the moisture from that center of circulation. It is one of those that could do the old loop-de-loop, right? We've seen it before. I believe Ivan was one that did that, but there's been multiple storms which have come east to west in the Gulf, and they get picked up by our westerlies, right? And then swung right back into the southeast. And there's a potential that 93L could do that. There's also the potential that overall a broader trough will once again stall out over the eastern Gulf and east of us across the western Atlantic, right up the Gulf Stream, where another spin could try and develop by mid next week. It would be, again, the third kind of situation like that. We had Chantal, we had 93L. Now we could be under that same potential as we get towards mid next week. So not only more moisture returning potentially with the loop-de-loop of 93L, but also other areas to monitor along that broad trough, which is what brought us all the stormy weather, as 93L developed as well. Again, it just wasn't that, center. We had other areas of a lot of tropical moisture coming back into play. Great to see you guys again for today. Of course, we have live cameras here at CFLW, so let's bring those up just to take a look at what's happening live outside right now. Winter Garden, goodness gracious. Again, anywhere, it's great to get a little bit of cloud coverage. It's good to see a little bit of blue sky between this broken deck of clouds. At least there's not a ton of haze right now, but again, it's just oppressive heat. If you notice that there's not a lot of vertical development to this cloud coverage at this point in time, again, could we still pop off a couple of showers and storms? And by the way, the ones that do get going today could produce some gusty winds and a lot of lightning. I don't think they're going to be severe, potentially a special weather statement here or there, but, very few and far between with many dry hours and locations. But any storms that get going today with all of this energy, right, with all of this heat, it's like fuel to the fire with these storms. They could go up quickly and they could be on the robust side. They could be rowdy and deep. Again, it's a beautiful but hot afternoon across Conway. This is just southeast of downtown Orlando. This camera is looking off to the east, so towards the east coast. Once again, kind of broken decks of clouds, partly to even at times mostly cloudy. It's good to see again some blue sky. There's a touch of haze in the sky. Nothing outrageous. Again, nothing to do with the Saharan air layer. But anytime you get overcast skies in this condition, the feels like number is just going to skyrocket because it's trapping in all of that low level moisture. Then we get you back down towards Disney. This is an area again where it looks a little bit more gray. No threat for any rain at this point in time at the attractions, but I got to tell you something, those workers at the attractions and those who are visiting from across the world here in the Lake Buena Vista area over the weekend, it's a tough one. Tough one to be outdoors and trying to enjoy the Magic Kingdom or Epcot or any place like that. What's the relationship between temperature and feels like? So when you're talking about the feels like temperature, Fiona, I mean, obviously your air temperature is your actual air temperature, right? Feels like temperature also factors in the dew point, which is the moisture in the low levels of the atmosphere. And what you get is a number to what it really feels like on the body, because when you're talking about an environment where you have a lot of moisture and the dew points are very high, what it really feels like on the body can be much higher than the actual air temperature. So it is an equation, but that feels like number is representing what it really feels like to impact you when you step outdoors. So it's not just the 95, 96, it's more like the 105 to 110. Now, the interesting thing is that it was way hotter even in the Mid-South the last couple of days with that feels like temperature. It's gotten better there. I mean, it's not much better. There are a couple of spots still around 110, but we're baking right now in the Southeast. There's no doubt about it. But great question. Appreciate you asking. All right, so let's talk about what rain could fall over the weekend and then kind of break down the overall pattern here for what I expect. So I'm going to bring up, first of all, Storm Prediction Center for today. Very, very common this time of the year. They just slap all of Florida under the general risk for thunderstorms. It has nothing to do with your chance. It's just all they're concerned about is, do any of the storms that develop have a decent chance to become severe? They don't have that for today. For tomorrow, I promise you, I just switched it to your Saturday, and then for your Sunday, it's still the same thing. So again, there's no organized severe weather expected. This graphic has nothing to do with the opportunity. It's just whether these storms have a chance to become severe. And they could, but they're not going to be in a very large fashion. So I'm going to go over to the HRRR model, high resolution rapid refresh. Again, nice, very high resolution local model. I'm going to back this up till 3 o'clock today. And this, again, only goes out 48 hours, so it will take us out to Monday morning. So I'm going to let this loop up. Take off the KMLB. All right. Now look, again, is it completely dry? No. Is there a fantastic chance for rain? No. Do you want to try and be at a water park or a pool or a splash pad if you need to be out in the afternoon hours over the weekend? Absolutely. All right, so let's break this down. We fully loaded up here. I'm going to let it loop one more time. All right, we'll come back to the beginning. So by 3 o'clock in the next hour and a half, the HRRR model tries to develop, in the most literal terms, an isolated shower or a rumble of thunder, right? Wherever those develop, again, I mentioned this already, wherever those develop, they could go gangbusters, meaning that they could produce very heavy rain and a lot of lightning and some gusty winds, but very few and far between. Tries to redevelop again. You know, the sea breezes are going to be pretty minute today. They'll have a little bit of an interaction, right? And you can see if we're going to get some storms, it's going to be a little bit later in the day, and it will probably be across the I-4 corridor. I got to be honest, the HRRR model is probably overdoing it slightly, but the interesting thing about this is, even here, this is actually just about 3 different cells that develop and then kind of blossom out, right? So you're not looking again at widespread. You're, 2 or 3 thunderstorms developing and producing that kind of activity. So we'll have to watch out for Lake County and Seminole County and Orange County and Osceola County for today. And again, with all this heat energy, they could fire up and be fairly nasty wherever they get going. But there's not going to be a lot of that. Should wind back down as we typically see as we lose the heat of the day. So we're done with that. Quiet to start off your Saturday. As we get into our Sunday, or excuse me, our Saturday. Let me start over. Quiet to start off our Saturday. As we get to the afternoon hours tomorrow, this is 3 o'clock on the HRRR model, and you see nothing, right? It's actually an even lower chance tomorrow. I've got like about a 20% chance for a storm across Central Florida tomorrow. That is about as low as it gets in the summer months. Are there times where we're completely dry because there's a huge plume of Saharan air over us and we're just capped? Yes. But in an environment where that's not the case, to have a 20% chance shows you just kind of the situation that we're in with the very stable air. So here's the storms again. Now, I do expect the West Coast to have a little bit higher chance for your Saturday. So if you're looking for some rain in Citrus County, in Hernando, in Pasco, in Hillsborough, in Pinellas, in Manatee, and Sarasota, you're going to have the better chance. So Spring Hill, Dade City, Zephyr Hills, Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater, Bradenton, Sarasota, places like that should have a slightly higher coverage of the storms on our Saturday. Certainly could still see a storm develop in the metro Orlando area and other interior locations. The East Coast should mainly be the drier part, but again, not a ton of activity. And again, they're going to get going. They'll be stronger, but just not a ton out there, right? And the HRRR model, again, might be overdoing this a little bit. I haven't seen much in the other models here. The HRRR is a little bit more aggressive, but even then, it's not the coverage that you would expect for this time of the year. And then we'll be quiet to kick off our Sunday. Hey, Sin, how you doing? Appreciate you guys tuning in. If you guys have a quick second, I do appreciate you also taking a second, hit that like button for me. Appreciate all of our new subscribers who have joined lately. Again, thank you for joining me for CFLW, the show. We do these shows generally twice a week to kind of get you guys prepared for what I expect. Again, this is a live show. It's a live only channel. And obviously you guys are aware of the live coverage I do for impactful weather across Central Florida as well. But this is a great primer, if you will, so that you guys can be prepared and know what I expect for the coming days. Friday's show typically covers Friday of the weekend, and I also do a Monday show, which typically covers the work week. So that's kind of the schedule, if you will. And even if you can't join me live, we archive these under the live tab of CFLW, which you guys can watch at your leisure. At any point in time you have a specific question about the forecast, feel free to drop it in the comments section below, even if you're watching the recorded version. Once again, heat advisors are into effect, and we don't see that a lot here in Florida, but it's not just us, my friends. It is a lot of the Southeast. And again, where you do have some of the heavier rain with these storms, you're getting flood watches because there's a ton of moisture. We call that precipitable water, basically the column of moisture above your head. And those are very high values in association with what I'm talking about. When we look at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, so again, this is not even the next 5 days. This is what we expect starting 6 days out through 10 days. So basically the mid part of next week through next weekend, there is still going to be a huge heat dome over the eastern third of the United States and especially the Southeast. We're not going to break this heat anytime soon. Now, hopefully we'll have some rain to tamper down the feels-like temperatures and cool things off in the afternoon, but get prepared for a very hot week ahead and basically a hot end to July. When we look at the precip outlook over the next 6 to 10 days, we are in the basically 50-50 chance of having normal rainfall for that time frame, right? So even though we're drier to start, hopefully by mid to late week, we begin to see the rainfall return. And again, part of that could be our loop-de-loop of 93L. So at least we're going to have average chances of our normal rainfall in that time frame if we're going to be that hot. So I'm going to go back over to the GFS model. Again, it's a longer range model. And let me loop that up for you guys, get that set up. And I'm going to take this out a full week. All right. And we're going to be breaking down, what's going to be happening here and talk about, and you can already see it, that next trough developing across that same area. It is a huge heat dome. How you doing? What are your fab stats in St. A? I'll have to take a look in a second, Fiona. Oh, you're asking probably Blue Goose if I had to guess. Yeah. So Blue Goose has 71% humidity. Got it. Yeah, that's pretty rough. When you're 91 and you can still have 71% humidity. Again, great to see you guys. I appreciate all those joining me in the chat. Appreciate all those watching. So let's break down. I think we're fully loaded up here. Let's see. First of all, you can clearly see there's a heck of a lot more green next week, right? So if we start this off at the beginning, right, and I'm going to show you guys the vorticity or the spin in the atmosphere in a minute. So you'll see what I'm talking about with the remnant low of 93L. But right now, this is just the reflectivity. This is just the rain. So if we stair step this for tomorrow, for Saturday, and even into Sunday, you don't see a heck of a lot of green on the map, right? As we get into Monday, we start to see those rain chances begin to return. And so this is going to be your Monday at 8 o'clock, right? And we should start to see this kind of swing back in from the northeast, but kind of just develop across the area as well. We're going to get, again, mid and upper level support to help enhance the sea breeze storms. Okay, so this is going to wipe out all of the drier air. It's going to wipe out all of the subsidence or sinking air. We're going to start to get back into a more active pattern. So here's Monday. As we get into Tuesday, you just see a heck of a lot more green on the map. So the transition day is Monday. Starting Tuesday, I expect there to be like a 70% chance for storms, and probably holding to that kind of opportunity through at least Thursday, if not Friday. So we are going to get back into a stormy active pattern here beginning on Tuesday. So we got to get through these next 3 or 4 days, and then we're back to a much wetter period. Again, it's not going to be extremely cooler, but obviously this is going to help things out a little bit and right on through the 7-day period. So this is next Friday at 8 o'clock. Again, looping it up one more time. If I just zoom this out a little bit more, you can see it's not just us. Watch this trough line again develop here. And so you'll even see a little bit of a spin, right? That's going to enhance all of that rain, just like we had as 93L developed earlier this week off of our East Coast. This could be the third time we have that same kind of pattern here for July. We had it July 4th weekend when we had Chantal. We had it earlier this week with 93L, and now potentially the third time that we get this trough to develop right over the peninsula of the states and off of our East Coast, and more potential tropical development. If nothing else, a lot of tropical moisture and some heavier rain working back into the forecast. So let me bring up what's called the absolute vorticity product. This is the spin in the atmosphere. It's not the surface spin, but it is a composite of the low levels of the atmosphere, right? I use this product a lot on the Media Mundo channel when we talk about the tropics. Sometimes I'll show it because I think it's a good indication. People obviously know, from the rotation of storms, how things spin, how things twist, how things evolve like that. So seeing this product allows them to see some of that. So if you noticed again, off of our East Coast, as we get towards let's say the 23rd would be Wednesday. So as we get towards, Tuesday here and Wednesday, we see spin here. Look at this. We see another spin back into the western side of the Gulf. Right along that trough axis that is likely to develop, we could have several areas of more spin, potential tropical development with any of this time of the year. Remember, we're talking about the Gulf Stream waters. Temperatures extremely warm, bath water in the northern Gulf, right? Temperatures along the coast for sea surface temperatures are in the upper 80s in a lot of spots. So there's plenty of heat energy, you know, in the Western Atlantic and the Northern Gulf to fire this off. But just like last time, regardless, tons of tropical moisture, and especially if a system can develop like 93L did and spin west, we pick up the south winds, right? And we pick up a lot of tropical moisture coming in with those south winds. Yeah, you got a Blue Goose. First of all, no need to apologize for being slightly late. Blue Goose is one of those perpetual joiners of our CFLW channel. Yeah, so dry, hot this weekend. The dangerous heat is the story for the weekend, but we break that down beginning on Monday and especially starting on Tuesday, where we could see some more wind. We could see some heavier rainfall as well. Now, let's take a look at this. I'm going to go over to, and I actually haven't looked at this myself yet, so I'm kind of curious. This is the GFS model. This is surface-based winds, okay? So what I showed you with that last loop was a composite of the low levels of the atmosphere and just the overall vorticity or spin. This would be the actual surface winds, not gusts, sustained winds, okay? So you can clearly see that the GFS is picking up on another area of rotation east of us here. Now, at this point in time, it kind of bends it back into South Carolina, right? But if we come back here, you know, you can see an ill-defined center trying to develop. And that's going to be Monday, isn't it? 2 o'clock. You know, what happens to that ill-defined center? Is that the only one? Does a secondary area try and develop a little bit later in the week? It looks like it does. You know, potentially that first one is more mid-level and then it consolidates into a low-level center. And, you know, again, it doesn't look very organized right now as we get towards Wednesday and Thursday, but, you know, there's your next one. Now back into the western side of the Gulf, you know, we had some spin there. It's very broad, but here's your next one. Watch that one. That's slightly more impressive, right? You know, could we get twin depressions to form off of this next trough line? It's that time of the year. Homegrown storms, as we call it, could absolutely happen. And again, you know, this is all kind of an association with the leftover remnant low of 93L, loop-de-looping back into the southeast and coming along with that overall trough line to just enhance all of that spin in the low levels. I think it's going to be a very interesting week ahead, right? We'll deal with the heat this weekend. We'll deal with having to probably be indoors more than we want to. But then as we get into Monday and Tuesday, I think we got ourselves a couple of things to keep a really close eye on for next week. $94 outside, so 120 feels like. The dew point actually is more of what it's going to be the potential for feels like temperature. So I don't know if you pumped in 71 as the dew point. Sadly, man, the dew point is probably even higher than that. All right. So let's see here. I've got a couple of forecasts for you guys, as you guys know. And then if we have any questions, we'll get to those. So let's start off with the forecast in Orlando. Once again, it's kind of crazy to put a 20% chance for rain tomorrow, but that's what I've got. Let's be clear. Anything that gets going, heavy rain, a lot of lightning and gusty winds, but many dry hours and locations today through the weekend. Feels like temperature of at least 105, probably lower than what it's going to be. Again, we already have some areas with a feels like temperature of 110, 111 today. It's not out of the question even for Orlando. 30% chance tomorrow, Sunday, and then we're back up to a 50% chance on Monday. Also notice, and one of the reasons why you get these heat advisories, it's not only for the feels like temperature in the afternoon hours, but when morning lows stay in the upper 70s, you don't get a lot of relief even during the evening and the overnight hours. So when you start with a low of 76, it doesn't take long to slam into the 90s, and that humidity comes along for the ride. So part of the heat advisories is also the fact that we don't cool off much in the overnight hours in this environment. Again, up to a 50% chance for storms on Monday. For Tampa, again, 106 the high for tomorrow. Maybe a few more thunderstorms there. I have a 20% chance, Probably should have gone a little bit higher for tomorrow along the coast. Looking at the HER model, the latest one, let's call it maybe 20 to 30 both weekend days, but there's still not going to be a ton. And then again, transitioning into a slightly better chance there on Monday. It's even stiflingly more warm in like the Tampa Bay area, and especially along the West Coast, because we're going to have a little bit more of an offshore wind where we're not going to tap into the cooler waters of the Gulf. So you're going to see, temperatures there kind of stay for morning lows in the upper 70s. It's not out of the question a spot or two could have a morning low over the weekend at 80 degrees. It's rough to talk about, but it's a possibility, especially, again, along the coastlines. You typically don't have the bigger swings diurnally in temperatures, right? A place like Ocala or the Villages typically cools off a little bit more in the morning, but then gets hotter in the afternoon. Coastal areas typically stay a little bit warmer in the morning hours, but don't get as hot in the afternoon hours because of the proximity to water. It'll maybe keep the northerners away. It might keep everyone away, JJ, is no doubt about it. I will say this, I think it's going to keep a lot of folks from being outside over the weekend in the afternoon. I don't plan on being outside in the afternoon hours. I wouldn't expect a lot of folks, unless you just have to be, right? And by the way, I mean, think about any of the kids who are playing summer league sports, like soccer, or if there's football practice or anything like that, man, it doesn't matter. 9 a.m., it's gonna feel like 95 to 100 already. Pretty rough. By the way, the bottom of your screen, those are live updating temperatures and conditions across all of Central Florida. And again, for 1 o'clock, that's hot. That's not even the, obviously feels like temperatures there. If you get a little bit of cloud coverage, consider yourselves lucky. That's a live look outside to Winter Garden. That's a live look outside to Conway in the southeast side of downtown Orlando. Looking back off towards the east. And once again, a little bit more of a murky sky at the attractions area. No rain, though, at any point in time right now. I'm going to go back over to the weather computer. And let's pull up the live Melbourne radar, as a matter of fact. So here's your live Melbourne radar. Get back over here, 135. Again, where do we see any little showers? Don't see much. Trying to get a little bit of the East Coast sea breeze to kick in. That's what you're seeing there right now. But so far, it hasn't allowed anything to get going. Temperatures again at the hour. If you are under 90, consider yourselves lucky. Those are actual air temperatures. You factor in the humidity, you factor in the dew point. Again, you basically factor in all that low level moisture. We've got 111 right now in Ormond Beach, 111 in Edgewater, 110 in Port St. John, 108 in the St. Pete area. I'm not sure. We might have 1 or 2 spots along the East Coast that are below 100 right now. I mean, look, let's all meet up for lunch in Melbourne. It's 98. That's the best that we can do at the hour, it looks like. 105 in Inverness, 103 in Ocala. Tough. Not going to get any better. Not going to get any better. Thank you, Fiona. I appreciate you saying that, which of course I am. Maybe you saw me on the old TV here in Orlando, but I've worked in Oklahoma City. I am a Florida native, was on television for 25 years. I'm not that old. Started when I was very young. Actually started, to be honest, my first on-air job, I was 21. I sadly graduated college in 3 years, which I do not recommend. Don't go through the accelerated. It's one of those, things that you regret in life is, why did I not just slow it down and take that 4th year? But I did start, my first job was in Clarksburg, West Virginia, at the CBS affiliate there. I had never been to West Virginia before I started that job. Grew up in Florida, went to University of Florida, but that's how you got started. It was an experience. It was fun, but it wasn't much past my 21st birthday as well. But I was a Monday through Friday meteorologist, and to not work weekends starting out was great because you just get that many more reps when you're getting started. Yeah, we want to try and incorporate all of that, right? What we want to bring to you guys, obviously, is live coverage of the impactful weather, right? So that when you guys have those notifications on and you see that I'm on, it's a situation that you guys need to turn into. So again, that's why I also recommend you guys having on your notifications, and that's the bell symbol that you guys see, that's your notifications, and then clicking that all notifications so you know that. But also when you guys tune in, you know that we have this state-of-the-art equipment, which we've spent a lot of resources on, and I've spent a heck of a lot of time refining for you guys, and then our camera network and other things that we have in the works to play all of this out, to give you guys a very visual appealing, but also a very informational, broadcast. And obviously some of the things that when we're in live storm coverage that my system can do and that I have customized is what I think is gonna, separate it. So I appreciate you guys tuning in and putting that trust and faith in me as well. Yeah, hurricane season is going to be interesting. I mean, obviously I did Helene and Milton, here on the CFLW channel. I've got the Media Mundo channel. That's an older channel that I started a little bit ago. That one, has a lot of subscribers. And so if you guys want to check that out, you have any interest in the Caribbean and the Bahamas, you can do that. Appreciate all those who have found the channel recently, but any tropical system that's going to be covering or impacting Florida, we'll be covering that live here on the CFLW channel. And again, we have a lot of things down the road to bring you guys that we hope to present to you as well. All right, we're going to wrap up this live stream. I appreciate everyone who tuned in for today. Once again, if there's impactful storms, I'll keep you guys covered with that. If I don't see you over the weekend, I will see you for Monday's CFLW, this show at 1 o'clock. Again, I schedule those, so you guys should see those on your YouTube feed as a scheduled, broadcast. I'll be back at 1 o'clock on Monday, and, we'll be talking about what this heat brought us over the weekend, but I think we're going to be looking forward to a very active week ahead. And we'll have more clarity, obviously, on how that leftover spin of 93L and how that tropical moisture and that trough could begin to impact the weather starting on Monday afternoon. But we could be in store again to be watching not only for some heavy rain and storms in the area, but also more tropical development close to home for next week. Friends, I appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. All of those in the chat, love you guys so much for doing so. Love the interaction as well. Guys, have a great rest of your Friday. I'll see you guys back here Monday for CFLW, the show at 1 o'clock. Until then, stay cool by staying indoors. Take care. I'll see you soon.